We had some technical difficulties. Those of you who tuned into our live post a little while ago, we had some problems this morning. It was kind of
Don't know why.
don't know why exactly. A problem with the microphone. Joe changed out the microphone somewhere in the middle, but we thought it was so frustrating to try to hear this song by Alyssa Finneman and Kimball Hurd. It's a beautiful song, and with all the garbled microphone problems, it couldn't be heard. So we thought we would, instead of keeping that live post up there, we'd redo this song and a recap of the message, and Joe will post that on Facebook and on YouTube a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, and thank you those of us who bravely tried to stick with us through that. It was really hard to watch for 5 or 10 minutes there until we got it fixed. So we didn't want to leave that up there. It's just too difficult to gain anything from it with that so much disruption.
So it's not quite so live.
So it's not quite so live as before, but this is a great song called Safe Place to Go.
Place to Go.
We're all refugees sailing on some sea, breaking storms in search of home, fighting for our beliefs. This is the irony, for we all want a safe place to go. There's trouble in our wake. Look at all the lives we take, claiming the truth to be our own, blinded by fear and hate. We've lost our way. We all need a safe place to go. A safe place to go. A safe place to go. We're searching for a city of refuge far from here, but maybe we've been sailing past it all these years. For if we are approaching, how will we know we're there? If battle flags are all we bear. What if I let you in? What would happen then? Would I be less or more than whole? If we could listen, really listen, we could make a safe place to go. 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 For we're all refugees, much too long at sea, braving storms in search of home. So lower the sails for peace and those who dare to dream, for we can make a safe place to go. We all want a safe place to go. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Alyssa and Kimball, for that beautiful song, "Safe Place to Go." And thank all of you who tried to hang in there with us this morning. It was we didn't know what was going on at the time. We didn't realize we were having so many technical difficulties, but also so much garbled sound. So we lost 5 or 10 minutes there. Were really painful to watch. So thank you all for sticking with us. But we thought we would at least redo the song and a recap of that message for later posting, so that we don't have to look at that again. So we're talking this morning and just about the working with the body. I took as my title, Begin with the Body. And how we can kind of help with the healing that's needed right now, a deeper level of healing. We talked a little bit about that last Sunday, and I wanted to share a little more about it. Because a lot of us are wondering now, what can we do to help? How can we help ourselves become more centered in peace? How can we help each other? How can we help our country with the deep healing that's needed, with all the strife and the rise up of racism again, and racially motivated violence, and the uncertainty, the worry, the fear, the anger. There's so much going on right now, in addition to concerns about our health and well-being. What can we do? And it's something that goes deeper than just thinking or trying to think our way there. It's a deeper level, and I think Menachem, this book I'm reading, Resmia Menachem's book, My Grandmother's Hands, Healing Racialized Trauma in Our Bodies and Our Minds. It's a deeper way of doing it through the body. He learned about this growing up. His grandmother had really gnarly arthritic hands, and he would massage her hands while they were watching TV, and he would ask her, how did your hands get that way? He was a little boy, and she said that she had been 4 years old when she started working in the cotton field. She was a sharecropper's daughter in the South, and those cotton plants would tear up her hands and make them bleed. But over years they got tougher and calloused, but still inflamed and swollen and arthritic as the years went by. And that kind of trauma is what led to those hands. So he took that as his title because he began to be really very aware of the internalized trauma people experience, maybe particularly Black and brown people when it comes to racialized trauma. But we're all traumatized in some way. And race is one of those ideas that creates a kind of constriction in us we don't even understand sometimes. And his work helps explain that to us, I think, because it's sort of a combination of narrative, what he learned from his elders, and also kind of some new science about the nervous system and how it works and how it holds trauma in our bodies that we need to work with in order to ease it up and to get more flow going and to be able to settle ourselves. So he introduced me to, and this is for some of you people with a medical background, it might be very familiar to you, but it was new to me, to the vagus nerve. And it's not like Las Vegas, it's V-A-G-U-S, the vagus nerve. I guess in Latin that means wandering nerve, because it's like the biggest nerve in the nervous system. It starts at the brainstem, the part of the brainstem that they call the reptilian or lizard brain, not the thinking one. It's the autonomic responses, it's emotional response. It starts back here, like the amygdala or hippocampus, comes down the face, the throat, the heart, the lungs, the pancreas, the kidneys, all through the body down into the gut. And it's the source of that fight, flight, or freeze response the body will do whenever it has a sense of being in danger, being unsafe. That's what it's all about, trying to get to feel safe. And it doesn't have to be a real danger, just a perceived danger. And it can lodge in the body, the nervous system responses in there. We can kind of get stuck there. And it can keep getting triggered and re-triggered whenever we have that sense of danger come up again. So this is something we can work with if we've got that kind of response. If we can learn to settle ourselves, we will not be so much a slave to the autonomic responses of our fight or flight mechanisms when something comes up, whether it's a racially charged situation or whether it's just a sense of danger for other reasons we might not even understand it. Very often these are the unconscious things. We overreact in some way. We have an emotional response, more dramatic than we even understand. we behave in a way that's like afterwards we think, I don't know why I felt that way so strongly or why I did that. It could be because that part of the brain was engaged in that sense of danger, whether real or not, triggered us. And that's something Menachem says in his book, and I think he's absolutely right, we can all work with and learn to calm our bodies, learn to settle ourselves, so that instead of being a slave to those impulses, those fight or flight impulses and those violent emotions, we can settle ourselves, noting where that constriction is when it rises up. We can settle ourselves, and then we can bring a calmer presence to whatever the situation is in, and to those we're in it with. We can make decisions about what needs to be acted on and what doesn't, and not just react in that automatic way that comes from that part of the brain back there. So it starts with getting in touch with our bodies and when we're constricted and where we're feeling that constriction. And I think we really need that rather badly right now. I was reading all his exercises. Half of the book is exercise, very simple physical exercises to learn to know where we're tense and calm it, settle ourselves. And I thought, this is something I feel we need badly right now, don't you? There's even a kind of dread of the news. It can be almost traumatic. You feel like, what's going to be next? There's a sense of stress that's kind of in our environment now, and we need to learn to be able to steady ourselves in the midst of that. Because we can work with this vagus nerve too to kind of send out signals, it's okay, I'm safe. That's the end of that response, the fight or flight response, and then when we work with it, the response that can follow is, it's all right, I'm okay, I'm safe, and everything can relax in the body. But we need to learn to work with that and be conscious of when we're constricted. So these exercises he comes up with are all about that, very simple ways of settling ourselves. He calls that vagus nerve the soul nerve because it's so at the heart of who we are and how we live and how we show up in the world and how we feel deeply inside. And we can develop a resilience with this and restore more flow and more ability to think and create and choose how we want to act through these simple exercises. He says to pick a couple and work with them routinely, like doing reps, like if you're working out. It is a kind of working out. We're working to restore flow in ourselves, so we're not so constricted and tense, and so our bodies are more wide open. He says it's the foundation of good health, learning to settle our bodies in this way, learning to settle ourselves. So here's very simple practices we can all do, and I'm going to do a couple, and I hope you'll join me in them. And think about which ones really resonate with you and make you feel a little more settled. And maybe those are a couple you could do day by day in the days ahead. He recommends doing them in peaceful moments at first, when you're quiet, when you're by yourself. But then as you do your reps and you get more resilience, more steadiness going, you can call upon it and do these practices in stressful situations, in stressful interactions. So one of the most simple is a simple deep breathing, belly breathing. Taking in a deep breath and letting it out like you're letting it out right down through the belly. Feeling it go out all the way down in there. You do a few of those and you definitely feel a little more settled, a little calmer. Another thing he does, and it's kind of expansion on that, is to add in humming. His grandmother would do that often, day by day. And it's a technique she learned intuitively for dealing with her sense of danger from her internalized trauma. She had often a feeling of impending danger. And she had developed a habit of humming. And Menachem says as a boy he would often join her in that humming. It was a strategy she learned, a way of self-soothing and settling herself. So he recommends this practice also, breathing in deeply, and maybe do that several times, just breathing in and breathing out deeply. But maybe on about the fourth or fifth one, add in this deep hum, a tone that you feel all the way down through your belly. So let's just try that. Join me in it. Dogs don't know about humming. They find that interesting. But there's something remarkably settling about it. I find, maybe it's my love of music and sound. It's a kind of toning. I know Alice Noonan is knows a lot about toning. She mentioned that in her comments earlier today. It's very healing, the sound moving through and resonating down deep in the belly. Other very simple practices that Menachem mentions in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, is a rocking. I sometimes find myself doing this instinctively. Either way, it could be back and forth, or it's a very instinctive thing. I think children do it quite often as a kind of a self-soothing thing. Somehow or other that brings us a sense of settledness. Menachem mentions other practices are to rub the breastbone or the solar plexus. It's very sort of centering, settling. Chanting, I'm very keen on chanting. You know, at our first Saturday chant, we called it that. We did that for 7 or 8 years, and once a month, and it was a time to come together and sing with others, especially simple songs with repetitive refrains that you can kind of get into and zone out a little bit too. But chanting Om can be tremendously settling. I think Menachem is right that few skills are more essential than this ability to settle ourselves. It's the foundation of good health. I think there's so many things in our immune systems, tensions we carry in the body that can create discord, disharmony, dis-ease, and benefits us so much to learn how to settle ourselves. A settled body is better able to harmonize with others, is less likely to be reactive, to overreact or behave unconsciously in ways that we look back afterwards and go, I don't know why I did that. A settled body able to come to some kind of peace is able to bring that to others. And Menachem is very much aware of that himself. He talks about in the work he does a lot of workshops for white community groups, diversity groups, for black groups, brown groups, for police forces, for all kinds of groups across the country. And he's very aware that in large part what he is doing is sharing his own capacity for inner settledness with others so that they can learn to cultivate that capacity in themselves. And he says we can all do it because of this infinite source in us, this infinite source of settledness, this wellspring of peace and steadiness in us. He doesn't call it God, but I would. Infinite source in us that we all have and can draw from. And as we learn to do that for ourselves, we can make that available to others. We can become a more peaceful presence in the world to help spread that energy far and wide, to help others develop that same center, and to help move us as a community of kindred spirits toward a more peaceful world. That's something we can all do. And it can start right here, working with ourselves, what we're feeling in our bodies, and learning to come to a steady center, to settle ourselves. So let's take that into a closing prayer, if we could. Close our eyes for a moment, becoming aware of that infinite source in us, that center of stillness and peace that is always there, that we are deeply connected to, that is unfailing. And we can draw from that. And we can practice that day by day. And as we do so, we will feel that flow through us more and more strongly. In all kinds of circumstances or situations, we will be centered. We will be grounded in God in us and guided in what's ours to do and what is not ours to do. We will be settled centers of peace at work in the world and sharing our peace with others. Thank you, God, for your unfailing presence with us, now and always. We are grateful. So it is. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. And for some of you, thank you for joining us again.